Hello, everyone. Welcome to this wonderful meeting of Tigertales Toastmasters. Sorry, I'm running a bit late. And I am trying to find who's the Toastmaster of the day.
One pass to me, Gia.
Yeah. So I'll call upon Xavier to take us through this meeting.
Thank you, Gita. Gonna shoot one quick reminder to everyone. If you can have your camera on, that would be appreciated. It just helps our speakers have somebody to look at in this weird time so we can get reactions, but no worries if you can't as well.
Xavier, your voice is very weird.
Is it really bad?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know how I can make it better, guys. Let me see. Maybe I'll turn down this. Any better or no? This is gonna be bad. I'm gonna try leaving the meeting and joining real quick, and we'll see if that helps. Huzzah! Okay, let's do it then. Welcome home to our Tigertales community that even when we are separated by, in some cases, thousands of miles, we can all join together and hear stories from one another to really get to the point where we can feel empathy for one another, to take away something from someone else. And even with people that meet together in a group for multiple years, they might not get to the same spot that we can get to because of Tigertales Toastmasters and the way that we're able to share our stories. It's something that I certainly appreciate. For old timers that might not remember the system or new people, we have 3 sections to this meeting. The first one is prepared speakers. The second one is table topics where anybody at all can participate, members or non-members. And the third section is evaluations where the prepared speakers get evaluated by evaluators and the meeting is evaluated as a whole. There's functionaries that also help out in the meeting as well. First up is Xavier, our clap master, who is going to give us a clap to make sure it's working. Clap check successful. Our next person. Hi. Is Freedom, who is our timer. Can you explain your role?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Today, my role is going to be keep track of the time. The first section that I will be timing is the prepared speeches. Usually these are for 5 to 7 minutes, and that's the time I'll be looking at. If you have any other different timings, please let me know in the chat and I will follow that. At 5 minutes for the speaker, I will turn my screen green. At 6 minutes, I'll turn my screen yellow, and at 7 minutes, I will turn my screen red, at which you'll have 30 seconds to stop. And back to our Toastmaster, Xavier sitting in Alex's house.
Thank you for that, Freedom. Our next functionary tonight will be Sridhar, who is our odd counter. Can you unmute and explain your role?
Hola.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll be the R counter for tonight, and my job is to count number of filler words like ahs, ums, or double words that speakers use today. So I'll keep track of that throughout the meeting. Over to you, Xavier.
Thank you, Sridhar. Our next functionary will be Roberta, who is our grammarian for tonight. Can you unmute and explain your role?
Hi everyone. Tonight, as your grammarian, I will be looking for both excellent uses of grammar and possibly places where we can look to improve. And in addition, I will be looking out for the use of the word of the day, which is backwards. I'll fix that on my screen.
Forward on our side.
Oh, it's good on your side? Okay. So sojourn, word of the day, means a temporary stay. So a sentence might be something similar to, my perfect idea of a sojourn is a week-long stay in a cabin with several books to read. Sojourn, use the word of the day. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
That is our functionaries for tonight. And now we're going to jump right into our prepared speeches for tonight. First up, he's a pretty cool guy. His name's Xavier. And evaluating him tonight will be Sarah. Can you explain what Xavier will be working on tonight?
And Xavier will be working on not speaking in the third person about himself, as well as the level 4 project in the dynamic leadership path. I'm going to be looking for a lot of fairly generic things in our evaluation sheet, including vocal variety, audio awareness, and interest, as well as a podcast, which is what his speech topic is. To you, Toastmaster / speaker.
Yes. Tonight I will be, so I won't use the third person anymore. I will be working on something which is pretty cool. Anybody that's not familiar, but as you get up into the higher pathway levels, the projects get more and more interesting. So this project was actually to make a podcast. And tonight I will be showing off just a snippet of what I got, a little teaser, and be ready for next year for the whole thing. So I'm going to start with an intro to explain it, and then we'll get to listen to just a teaser. Please give a hand for me. How does one become a transformational leader, a great speaker, an effective evaluator? These are the questions that people have been asking for the ages, coming up with new ideas and some kind of working, but mostly failing. The goal of this podcast is to take it in an entirely different direction. Instead of coming up with a good idea, testing it, measuring it to determine whether it's successful, we're going to go into interviews, talking to people that are already transformational leaders, effective evaluators, and spectacular speakers. And through these interviews, we're going to be able to pull out all of these little effective things that happen. And these aren't the things that are measured, the things that are unknown, called the intangibles. This will be the Intangibles podcast. And a lot of it will be formed around Tigertales and its original leaders, because Tigertales has been around for 6 years now. And what we know is that it's been very successful in both the foundation and creation of now multiple generations of leaders. So we're going to go all the way back to the beginning and discover what kind of leaders, speakers, and evaluators started this club to make it the place to be. Today will just be a little teaser, but be ready for next year when the full thing comes out. Now I'm going to share my screen so you guys can hear the teaser product. Once I get permission, I will share. Can you guys see my screen? Okay.
Is it just me or I just can't hear the voice?
Oh gosh, you guys can't hear it?
Yeah. Try when you're sharing your screens, click on share the computer sound as well.
Okay. Take two, guys. Feels like we're running into every technical problem tonight. Oh, yes. Okay. I didn't click on the right checkbox. Can you hear it?
That's a big part of the reason, I think, why it's important to Xavier and why I'm wanting to support this podcast, so that we can go back and talk to these people that made Tigertales possible. These incredibly talented, inspiring, world-shaping people that are out there doing amazing things with companies like Google and Facebook and Intuit. I don't think Halim can even talk about half the stuff he does for work, and and cutting edge research that is changing lives and doing incredible work all over the world too, to talk to these people about the way that DNA of transformation and vibrant, diverse energy and storytelling and vulnerability that makes Tigertales what it is. If we can bottle a little bit of that lightning and make sure that it makes it through to the next generation of Toastmasters and the next, and maybe share it with a few other clubs, then this whole effort will be worth doing.
I want you to think about your week, the last 7 days. And I want you to think about all the opportunities that you've had to communicate with someone. Really communicate with someone. Lock eyes with them. Hear their deepest feelings. Hear a story from them. Really communicate. And you think about all those opportunities that you've had to really communicate. Maybe there's not so many. Or maybe there's a lot of them. Now I want you to think about who you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Not what you want to do, not what you want your job to be, not how much money you want to be making. I don't want to know about any of that. But I want to know who you want to be 5 years from now. And I guarantee that your life will be richer if those moments of communication, real communication of locking eyes, feeling someone's heart, empathizing with someone, connecting with them. And the more of those you have, and the deeper they go, the richer your life will be.
The way our education system has evolved, like in modern times, we necessarily don't need to be able to speak to survive or to make money. You could be a computer scientist locked away in a basement somewhere who's still going to get a salary, and you can get through your entire life without speaking. But then you ask yourself, am I really free, right? Because individuals don't feel they're free until they get to actually express themselves. Maybe, not just express themselves in daily life, but maybe in front of a group of people. Like that I think ultimately, even if you're free in a free country, you're not free until you're able to have a voice and say something. Just yesterday, I was in another class trying to promote Tigertales and tell people what Tigertales Toastmasters does. Catherine was with me, she's smiling because she knows what happened. And everything was going well just until one guy raised his hand and he said, there are other free clubs on campus that help with communication skills. Why should I join Toastmasters? Guess what I did? And I realized that was a horrible response. There are going to be times where all of you are going to be put in that position. For example, you might go to an interview and an employer might ask, why should I hire you? What are you going to do? Don't do what I did. So it's critical that we understand what our philosophy is because it reflects in our responses. And the difference is this. If your philosophy is getting, you're going to toot your own horn, versus if your philosophy is giving. And if you're clear on what your philosophy is, your answer will sync well with the employer. Yeah, and I think the other value like Toastmasters in general has is it fosters certain kinds of human conversations that don't necessarily happen at work. You could know your colleagues and work with them for years and years and not get to hear a certain side of them. But in Toastmasters, we do. In Toastmasters, there's, you might talk about surface things for a couple of speeches until you get to that point where you talk about something that's actually important to you. And then you suddenly connect with the whole room.
Oh, yeah.
So you will not only learn about speaking and leadership, but you will start making some amazing friends, lifelong friends.
Indeed. I remember a dinner that we had pretty early where Corey hosted the whole e-board, and we were sitting around. I think we made clam chowder, which was just amazing. And getting to talk for hours outside of the meeting. That certainly didn't have a 55-minute rule on it.
No.
Yeah, I do remember. I think Gina had made some salad. It was all vegetarian, but it was the most delicious salad I've ever had. It was. I think I'm hungry just thinking about it right now. Man, honestly, yeah. And I think you start in Toastmasters maybe for personal reasons, but what makes you stay is you realize the friendships there, as well as you have been helped so much. You feel compelled to give back in some shape or form.
So fellow Toastmasters, me and lifelong guest, be on the lookout for Intangibles podcast. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you for that wonderful speech, me. If we could all get a minute, Mr. Timer, to put in some love notes on the chat.
is 1 minute.
Thank you, Freedom. Our next speaker will not be me. It will be Kelly. Evaluating Kelly tonight will be Hassan. Hassan, can you explain what Kelly's speech will be about tonight?
Hello, everybody. Kelly is working on the Pathway Innovative Planning, and her project is Know Your Audience, Know Your Sense of Humor, which is a level 3 project. It's an elective project. So the objective is to begin developing a collection of humor stories and to present a speech that includes humor. Thank you.
Thank you. I had Kelly's speech title, but I might have lost it in the chat. Nope, I found it. It is called The Best Medicine, from Kelly and her house, The Best Medicine.
Do you have that person in your life that continuously puts a smile on your face and makes you laugh? That person for me is my sister, Stacy. She was definitely the comedian of our family. If laughter is the best medicine, she was the cure. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. My sister and I are like day and night, fire and water, light and dark, Pinky and the brain. They say opposites attract, and we actually got along quite well in our childhood, and even more so as we grew into young adults. I admire her for finding ways to keep life funny and interesting. She could make my heart feel weightless and made my moments lighter when I took them too seriously. While growing up, I tended to be the more serious one, and she was the funny one, always on stage. I remember one summer we were put on the same soccer team. I was the practical one and was explaining to her the value of being in a defensive position. She got to stand in front of the goalie and keep the other team from scoring a goal, while I got to be in the front and run and try to make goals. In the middle of the game, I decided to look back and check on her. And what did I see? She was sitting down, and she had a handful of wildflowers in her hands that she had been picking. "I'm outside," she said to me later. "You've got to enjoy the nature around you and the bounty." Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "The earth laughs in flowers," and my sister knew it. We were also going to the same Catholic elementary school for a while. I had to be up by 7 and in order to get ready for the 8 a.m. bus. But for some reason, my sister didn't get up until 7:15. So one morning, instead of going down to eat my breakfast, I decided to go up into our shared room and get dressed first to see why she got to get up a little bit later and still managed to be ready for the bus on time as well. I was getting dressed and had finished. I hear her alarm go off. She shuts it off, pulls the sheets open, pops her eyes open and says, "I'm ready." She was all dressed. How did she do that? As I inquired more, I found out that she said, "Well, I take my pajamas off and put my clothes on before I go to bed. So that way, when I get up in the morning, I'm all ready to go." Genius. Why didn't I think of that? I could have been getting 15 minutes more of beauty sleep that was definitely needed. we got into our young adult years, the laughter did not stop, and she continues to be hilarious and find creative ways of exuding this humor. One year, we went to my cousin's wedding, and we naturally were sat at the same table at the reception. The feast was abundant, and for dessert, chocolate cake. She enjoyed every bite. And as I looked over at her, I noticed that she had those wheels turning in her head and was obviously thinking, well, these guests need to continue to be fully entertained. And I see something ridiculous happen on her face. Do you like my chocolate toast? Would you like to go on a date? How about a kiss? Now, she made me laugh for at least, 15 minutes. Now, every time I eat chocolate cake, I always think of this story. There is nothing in this world more irresistibly contagious than laughter and good humor, quoted Charles Dickens. Embrace this sentiment and find ways to laugh. My sister sure knew how to make me laugh. And in these confusing pandemic times, we've got to still find ways to laugh in healthy ways. So next time you're thinking about being upset about something, go try to pick some wildflowers. Put your clothes on before bed so that you can have that 15 extra minutes of beauty sleep the next morning. And for goodness sake, embrace the chocolate tooth every time you have some chocolate cake and show your family members how to laugh. Mr. Toastmaster, can I have a kiss?
I don't know about a kiss, Kelly, but I did grab a wonderful screenshot of that. Mr. Timer, can we get a minute to send Kelly some love?
That is 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. Our next speaker will be Gaurav. Evaluating Gaurav is Bhakti. Bhakti, can you talk about what Gaurav's project will be tonight? Hey, Bhakti, we can't hear you. Or at least I can. Just running into every tech problem tonight, but we are pulling through. So Bhakti is not going to explain Gaurav's speech project. We are actually just going to listen to Gaurav's speech and infer. I have a guess that it is research your topic. Gaurav has, yes, I got the yes. Gaurav has been ambitiously working through his pathways since he's joined. He's hit the ground running with some excellent speeches so far. He has aspirations to be a great lecturer, so research your topic is right up his alley, and I'm excited to hear what he does with it. Gaurav, it's all you.
I want everyone to close your eyes for a minute and imagine the person you admire the most. You might be having a list of people whom you admire. You might be eliminating some of them. Some of you have already identified whom you admire. For those who don't, you can admire me. It would make me happy for a few seconds. Jokes apart, you may open your eyes. Over here, you can see a picture of my parents. Today, I'll be talking about my dad. I call him the moral code book. Mom, if you're watching this video, I do admire you. But today, the speech is for my dad. So, his name is Shivaji Wagh. He is 59 years old. He was working in a company, but recently he retired. Now, his full-time job is to take care of my mother, like you can say a housemaker. Also, watch YouTube videos all the time, which makes my mom more irritated. Next, I call him the moral book because he has taught me few values. Today, I'll be discussing few of them. To be specific, 3. I still remember when I was 10 years old, I was sitting on sofa opposite to my parents. My dad said, "Gaurav, can you pass the newspaper?" Me casually picking up the newspaper and threw the newspaper at him. But before the newspaper landed on the ground, I felt a gush of wind, and which made my cheeks warm. It was not because of any climate change or global warming. I was being slapped. And the best part was, I didn't know by whom, my mom or my dad. It was so fast. Then my dad, with a heavy voice, said, "Do not throw the things which give you knowledge." I learned a lesson the hard way. Over here, the hard refers to the slap. And of course, it was my dad. When I was 15 years old, one day my dad came from office and handed me 7,000 rupees and said, "I want a printer. I need to print something important. Go buy a printer by dinner time." I took the money and I was like, okay. I had no idea what exactly to ask when buying a printer. My dad had given me only 3 hours. I went to the shop. I inquired few places, and at the end, I came with a printer. My dad asked me one question. "Why did you selected this model? What was your thought process?" I said, "I went to various shops. I inquired about types of printers. I came to know there are 2 types of printers, an ink printer and a laser printer. Also, there are various categories of printer, like 3-in-1 printers, which have added functionality such as Xerox, you can say photocopy, and scanning along with the printing." Looking at this, he said, "Good, you made an informed decision. I don't need the printer. You can use it for your educational purposes. You made a good informed decision." I learned a lesson. Also, I got a 3-in-1 printer. My mom, talking about my mom, this is for you actually. Talking about my mom is also spiritual, but little bit more as compared to my dad and myself. We usually plan trips to holy places for worship. She came to my dad and said, I want to visit a temple which is 1,000 miles away. My dad immediately booked the train tickets. We then left for the place. The train journey was 32 hours. We reached at that place. We checked into the hotel. We planned to visit the temple early in the morning at 5:30. We got up. We went to the temple. Over there, the temple was so crowded that we couldn't have a proper time or space to stand and pray. So we just came out. My mom was happy that she visited the place. I was like, what was that? I didn't like see anything. But then when we came back to our hotel, my dad just passed me a piece of paper, blank paper, and a pen and said, can you just draw the rough sketch of an idol, what you saw? I took the pen in my hand and I'm like, okay. I cannot say no to my dad. Of course, I would have like received few slaps more. So in that case, I just took a pen. I gave up, you can say, an attempt. Of course, I didn't draw anything. I said to my dad, I don't remember it. My dad, so what's the use of traveling so much hours and just you can still recollect the idol? I was quiet. Later, he said, Gaurav, just wanted to tell you one thing. I do believe in God, but I also respect your mom's belief towards it. I also want you to respect your others' belief and also believe in yourself. This lesson will remain for me with the rest of my life. So to conclude, out of various things which he has taught me, there were three important things which I discussed. First, respect small things. Second, take informed decision. And third, respect people's belief. When I was small, I wanted to become like my dad. Now, after so many years, I'm still trying to emulate him.
Thank you, Gaurav, for bringing us right into the stories of your father. I feel like I know him fairly well, even though I've never met him, and know to watch out for his slaps. Mr. Timer, can we get 1 minute for an not evaluation, only love notes here.
That is 1 minute.
This concludes our prepared speaking section of our meeting. And on to lead up the next section will be Destin, who is going to be leading our table topics section. Destin has also been relatively newer, also hungry to get into these roles. Toastmaster. I think will be his first time doing table topics. So I'm ready for all the heated questions he throws at us, and I hope all of you guys are as well. Destin, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Here comes the times where everybody can jump in and speak, answer questions. Some questions that I will ask. The question will be related to the theme of the word of the day, which is home. And it is a very interesting word. Actually, one of my favorite words in English, because it doesn't just describe a physical place where people live. As the proverb says, home is where the heart is. And I have to confess that it was difficult for me to find questions about this word. And I'm afraid to give a too long introduction about this word, less than I answer one question that I've prepared for you. So before we jump in with the questions, I would like to ask our timer to remind us the timing rules for table topics.
Thank you, Destin. The timing rules for table topics are very simple. You have to speak for a minimum of 1 minute and not more than 2 minutes, 30 seconds. To keep you on time, at 1 minute, I'll show you the green screen behind me. At 1 minute, 30 seconds, you'll see the yellow screen. And at 2 minutes, you'll have the red screen, after which you'll have 30 seconds to wrap up. Back to Destin.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. And now I will ask to our grammarian to remind us the word of the day.
Word of the day is sojourn, which means a temporary stay. So a sentence might be something like, I sure hope my daughter sleeps all night long in her crib and it's not just a sojourn for an hour or two. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Madam Grammarian. I remember during my sojourn in Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas, I felt like home. And it was difficult for me to come here in Rochester because I already had made a lot of friends there. But now I feel home here too. So who wants to be our first speaker for the table topics? Okay, Cyril. My question to you, Cyril, would be, what is home to you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Table Topic Master. That's actually a good question, and it makes me laugh because it's the same questions that I asked the people that are doing the evaluation today. So I found myself thinking about my answer because I didn't think about it when I asked them to answer that question. But if I had to answer this question, it will be that for me, home is where you feel loved. I really felt that way when I moved here in the United States. And I met with an American family. They took me as one of their own. And I was spending some weekends at their house. I really learned to understand the American culture with this family. And one thing that you see when you are getting into their house, they have this very beautiful sign that is right here hanging in front of the door. And it says, home is where you feel loved. And I always felt loved in this family. And I also feel loved almost everywhere I go. That was the same thing when I moved to Tennessee and I was living with a host. After just 3 months, I became very close to the baby who just turned 1, because the mom will be taking care of the baby every day. The dad was always gone because he's a military, and I would try to help her out whenever I finished work. So we became really close. And since I left there, I feel like I miss him a lot. And the same thing happened when I moved. After 3 months, I moved to North Carolina. I'm right now in Mooresville. And I connected with a lady on the Airbnb. I'm renting a house with her, but I ended up feeling like I am in my own house. And that is because they are showing love to me. So home is where you feel loved. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyril. Who wants to go next? Shitra. Good. For you, Chitra, I will use a quote that I heard from a French singer who once said, after traveling around the world during all his concerts, what he realized was like, in the end, what he wanted was to be home. Can you tell us a time where you were so far from your home that you missed it so badly and you wanted to go back?
Thank you, Destin. It was actually funny you talk about this topic because it was actually yesterday I felt that. I have been traveling all my life and I have not stayed in a place more than 4 years. And in this meantime, I've been separated with my father for a few years, for my mother for a few years, and for both my parents, and my whole of my family now. And so home is actually the people you love, as Cyril said, is what I think. And then yesterday when I was filled with all the deadlines and all the tasks around me to do, I was like, I don't want this anymore. I want to go home because I can just lie on the sofa and my mom can feed me food. It's all you wanted to hear at the end of the day. And that's when you're overwhelmed with something, when it's work and you just want to feel loud and comfort yourself, that's when we all would want to go there. It might be just a sojourn for us to just go home and feel once in a while, but then that impact which it gives us lives for a long time. And that's what I would like everyone to enjoy once in a while, to go back home, to sojourn this experience. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, Shitra. I have one last question, but before I would like to ask the timer if you have enough time for one more question. Good. As I said, I really struggled to find questions about this word. So the last question is very similar to the first two. And I saw Gaurav. Okay, Gaurav. Can you tell us about a time you felt home, far from your loved ones?
Can you sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, can you tell us about a time you felt home elsewhere? I mean, far from your loved ones, far from your family.
Yeah. Thank you, Chitra. So when I moved to US for my PhD, back in India, I stayed in a joint family, and I was in like that attitude that there is no place like home. Of course, there is not, and this is like a sojourn place. Like just come, finish your work, and just leave back. But then I realized that we are human beings and we have basically the property to adapt. I'm not talking in literal science sense, but we can adapt to situation. And before there was no friends and everything. Then like after like few months, I started interacting, getting social, not as social as right now I'm with Toastmasters, but little bit social. But and then for me, the same place felt like home. And listening at Chitra's speech, oh, I'm bringing you food today. So that was my day. Thank you. Back to table topic master.
Thank you, Gaurav. This puts an end to our table topic session. But before we go back to the table to Toastmaster, Mr. Timer, did everyone respect the time?
Everyone was qualified for the time.
Thank you. Madam Grammarian, did everyone use the word of the day?
So I apologize. I very clearly heard Chitra saying it, but I'm not entirely sure if Cyril and Gaurav did. So I'm kind of hoping some other people might be able to help me out with those two.
Gaurav did.
Getting a lot of head nods. So we'll say all three said it.
I'm not sure I said it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll pretend I said it.
Good, thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
You should see on your screen a Fave TT questionnaire to answer. Pick your favorite speaker of tonight, because Chitra has technical magic and she might even win tonight, but I'm not planning votes. So pick who you'd like, and I will introduce our next section, because leading it will be Cyril. And I think Cyril is a perfect person to lead the section, because every time I hear him say something, I'm always impressed by the wisdom that comes out of his mouth every time he opens it. I'm excited to see and to hear what kind of feedback he has for us tonight, and also as he leads a very effective evaluation team into our next section. Over to you, Cyril.
Thank you very much, Xavier, and I return your appreciations to you, because I feel like you are also full of wisdom whenever you talk. So thank you very much for that. The evaluation is also a very important part of that meeting, because evaluation helps us actually improve. And the purpose of the evaluation is to look at what we've done wrong and the areas that we can improve for next time. So today we are going to evaluate different sections of the meeting. First, we are going to do the evaluations of the prepared speeches, and then I will deliver a report about the entire meeting. To start with the prepared speeches, evaluating the first speech, I believe, was Sarah. And I asked Sarah what home means for her. And she said, I would say home is anywhere love and family are, but alternatively, home is where I can wear sweatpants, read a book, and drink tea. Sarah, would you like to give us your evaluation of the first prepared speech that was delivered by Xavier, I think? Yeah.
This is a difficult topic. You have to introduce your podcast, and then we have to listen to your podcast. And you don't get to be visual during that. So what we saw tonight is Xavier giving the introduction to his podcast, where he used alliteration, the rule of three, and he varied his speaking speed. That was all within the first 2 minutes before we even got into the podcast itself. He also did a great job of navigating this double role of being the speaker and the Toastmaster, though I made fun of him for third person. And he bounced back from his setbacks. It's not always the easiest thing to do. I always have a difficult time when I hear that my sound sucks. And Xavier navigated it with grace and resiliency. He looked at the camera most of the time when he was speaking. I did notice Xavier looking off to the side a little bit. I'm guessing that you maybe had notes over there because it didn't look like lack of confidence, look away sort of motion. However, it does convey that to the audience. We know you well enough, or at least I know you well enough, that that's not one of your speaking quirks. However, recognizing that is one of the things that you can challenge yourself with. It is so tempting with these virtual meetings to rely on notes. Nobody can see that I have a notebook or that I have a separate tab over here with my speech. However, we're going to grow more if we're just as prepared for these virtual speeches as we are for the in-person speeches. The shifty eyes just communicate either a lack of trustworthiness or a lack of confidence. The podcast itself was really interesting. A lot of those people we know and love and care about deeply. However, it jumped right in and I was confused from the very beginning. I didn't know what they were talking about, what the discussion was around. I caught on somewhat towards the end, but it took a while. So having some kind of intro or letting us know what the discussion topic was, what prompted it. It seemed like it started actually in the middle of a sentence that Alex spoke. Maybe that was what you were going for, but as someone listening to it, I wasn't sure what exactly I was listening to. Overall, once I got into it, it was a really interesting topic. Of course, anything where we're talking about Tigertales or Toastmasters in general is interesting. And the people who were speaking had authority to do so. So polishing that up a little bit, I'm sure in a full podcast there would be more as well. But getting an intro to it made at least me want to hear more of the podcast. So excellent job introducing that and using the hiccups of virtual communication to communicate even more confidence in your speaking. Well done, Xavier. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Sarah. There's one thing that I omitted to do before we start the evaluation was to ask for the timing rules. So I guess this is something that I have to put in my own report. Remember to ask for the timing rules. So Mr. Timer, Pritam, would you like to remind us the timing rules before we move ahead?
Yes, sure. So for this section of evaluations, we'll have the evaluator speak for 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, I will show them the green background. At 2 minutes, 30 seconds, the yellow background, and at 3 minutes, the red background, at which they will have 30 seconds to wrap up. Back to you, Cyril.
Thank you very much, Mr. Timer. Now let's move to our second evaluation for the second prepared speech delivered by Kelly. And evaluating Kelly was Asan. I asked Asan what home means for you. And he said, for me, home is a place where you can find peace, love, and joy. So I guess we all have almost the same definition of home. Thank you very much for that answer, Asan. And I am giving you the floor to provide your evaluation of Kelly's speech.
Thank you very much, Cyril. Kelly, your speech, the objective was to deliver a speech which includes humor, which is different from humorous speech actually. So you did it well, and here is what I like in the speech. First of all, the title. It was intriguing because the title is The Best Medicine, and I was asking myself, is she going to make us laugh with a story about medicine? And actually, it was funny. And this is something we often find in comedy or TV shows. They have an intriguing title. We don't really know what they're about, and this is what actually make us laugh. And I also like the use of a rule of three in your speech when you are comparing yourself with your sister, and also the fact that you use flowers and chocolates and to illustrate what the stories you are telling us, like for when you're playing soccer and or when you went to the birthday party. There's a golden rule in humorous speeches, which is to be playful, because you can't make people laugh when you are as serious as my dad explaining to you why is it important to eat fruits. And Kelly was really playful in that speech, especially I like when she had the chocolate on the teeth to impersonate her sister. And when you are listening to humorists when they are making us laugh, they always have dialogues, the impersonating people. And she also did that to she was impersonating her sister when she got dressed or when they were playing soccer. What can be improved from this speech? As I say, I really like the fact that she had dialogues, like when she was impersonating her sister. But it seems like, I don't know, maybe you have similar voices with your sister, but I didn't really get the difference between your voice and your sister's. And there's also something I was expecting also in the speech, which is also the rule of three for speeches, for humorous speeches, which is to talk about something serious. The second, something which is also humorous, and at the end, something unexpected. And I really like what I like the most about your speech. Maybe I'm not the only one. It was the conclusion, because it was unexpected, and it really this is what makes me what made me laugh. So congratulations for this speech. It was wonderful. As I said, it's not really a humorous speech. It was a speech with that includes humor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hassan. Now the third and last evaluation of the prepared speeches. The speech was delivered by Gaurav, and evaluating Gaurav was Bhakti. I know Bhakti was not able to introduce him, but I don't know if she can provide the evaluation. Bhakti?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right. And I asked Bhakti the same question, and her answer was, home is somewhere I can feel comfortable. And I think we all feel comfortable being here at Toastmaster tonight. Very great meeting, very hilarious, good mood. Bhakti, back to you to provide your report about the speech.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and especially Gaurav. You started with a question and also got the audience engaged by asking them to close their eyes and think about a person. That's a good way of getting the audience interacted with your speech. The humor in your speech was on point. I don't have anything else to say about it. And the best thing about your speech was you used the limited space that you had, and it was a good use of space for describing each character. You wanted me to look at voice modulation in your speech, and I think that is somewhere you could use, like when you were talking about your dad and yourself. You mentioned that your dad said something with a heavy voice. So if you could have changed your voice for that particular sentence, I would have appreciated that more. And I loved how you described that you got a slap. Just a little addition that you could have made a slap sound via computer audio, or maybe with your own voice. That is stretching it a bit much, but that would have added a little bit humor to your already humorous speech. Also, the thing I noticed was you repeated the words like, and of course, a lot. That is something I think the R counter will also give you a feedback on, but that is something definitely you can work on. But overall, it was a good speech about your dad, not forgetting your mom. And I'm looking forward to hearing many more speeches in future. Over to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Bhakti. And this ends our first part of this evaluation. Now we are moving to the second part, which is the evaluation that will be provided by the functionaries. I would like now to call our timer, Pritam, to provide his report about the timing for this meeting.
Okay, I already posted the speaker's time on the chat. For the table topics, the speakers included Cyril, who was 2 minutes 15 seconds, Chitra was 1 minute 26 seconds, and Gaurav was 1 minute 43 seconds. For the evaluators, Sarah was 3 minutes 27 seconds, Hassan was 2 minutes 44 seconds, and Bhakti was 1 minute 53 seconds. That was my report. Back to you, Cyril.
Thank you very much, Pritam. Next is our R counter, who is Sridhar. Sridhar, would you like to provide us your report?
Hello again. So for the R counter, I'll start with Toastmaster, Xavier, and for speaker, I didn't catch any filler words for you, and same for Kelly. For Gaurav, I did catch few filler words like as, likes, and so, or but. And for the table topics, Destin, I just got 1 R. Serial for the table topics, and for general evaluation, you've used 2 R's and 2 so's or buts. And table topic speaker Chitra, you used 1 so, and Gaurav got few R's in table topics. And Sarah, I didn't catch any of the filler words for you. Hassan, you used 3 so's, and I didn't catch anything for Bhakti. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sridhar. Next is our grammarian, Roberta. Roberta, would you like to provide us with your report?
Tonight we had all 3 of our prepared speakers use the rule of 3 throughout various points of their speeches. We also saw some alliteration, in particular with some of the things sprinkled throughout Xavier's speech. We saw, or heard, I should say, some rhetorical questions from both Kelly and Gaurav, and contrast comparison or antithesis we heard from Kelly with things like fire and ice, dark and light. We had a couple of people use the word of the day. We definitely could have heard it a few more times, but one thing I think we did really well from the grammarian's point of view is tying or making both metaphors and just tying things back to what home is for each of us. So I loved all of the examples that everyone shared about where your heart is, where your family is, where you feel loved. Particularly appreciated that it's where you can wear sweatpants and read books and drink tea. So all of those great examples of what home is to each of us. I didn't have anything in terms of where we can improve. I will say it's a little bit hard sometimes with some of the glitches to kind of catch what people mean to say. But hopefully once we're back in person, we can look to improve in some of those other areas. So good job tonight, guys.
Thank you very much, Roberta. One thing I would like to do tonight is to call on our club master, because usually we don't hear them speaking. Would you like to just tell us how you feel about this experience today?
Let me clap for myself. Thank you, Cyril. This is the first time I'm being the clap master, and sorry that I was late initially, so it took me some time to set up the sound. And the most interesting part is whenever I play the clap, I can't hear it. So I'm just trusting that it's playing for everyone. And I did hear some inputs on the chat where it didn't play in between. So I apologize for that. Maybe I need to figure out a way where I can also hear the applause and everyone else can hear it too. I guess that's all from my side. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right. Thank you very much, Ajita. Now, this is the last part of the evaluation. I will be providing a short evaluation of the entire meeting today. So we started a little bit late today, but one thing was positive was that a lot of people gathered 5 minutes before the meeting, and we had a small chit chat that was really good to me. And we heard some good stories, good news about Ming Xiu being able to an appointment at the embassy, I believe. So if we can all gather a few minutes before the meeting and chit chat, especially when we cannot stay a little bit longer because our meetings are happening late now, it will be good so we can also socialize. Today, the gods of tech were not with us. We had a lot of technical issues since the beginning. But this is something that we cannot always control because sometimes the internet just goes off and it just happens like this. So let's not be ungrateful because thanks to internet, thanks to technology, we are able to gather here tonight and to have that wonderful meeting together despite the distance. So second is the clap check that we did initially at the beginning of the meeting. I found it really positive. And I think that we can also do that for a lot of things. Actually, we saw Xavier wanted to show a video or an audio, actually the podcast. So this is something that we could also check to see if the sound is working or not. So if we can do that next time and make sure all the technical aspects are checked before, that can also add a little bit more of positivity and efficiency to our meeting. Xavier, I appreciated you stepping in as a Toastmaster. That was great. It's to me a symbol of leadership and also solidarity that I think exists between the team. And it's encouraged each of us to be ready to take on this role whenever we will be called to do so. I also liked when you introduce yourself. From a Toastmaster, you introduce yourself as a speaker, which was really fun. And whenever you were talking, you were saying, unmute yourself and explain. I think this helps us a lot to check and make sure we are unmuted before we talk, because a lot of times we just start talking, and it happens a lot with me. We just start talking before we unmute ourselves. So it's, to me, something really positive to remind people to always unmute themselves before they talk. So you showed us a podcast. To me, it was more than a teaser. So this is a great experience, and it added a little bit of value to the meeting tonight. Attendance, I noticed a couple of guests at some point during the meeting, if I'm not mistaken, but I think they are all gone now. Maybe we can check later if we can connect with them and see what they think about the meeting. That would be great. We also noticed the presence of Mami, who came back tonight to be with us. Thank you very much, Mami, for joining. Table topic, we had very great questions. I think the answers were heartwarming, and it made us remember our individual journey, where we are coming from, where we have been, and where we are going. So this was a beautiful topic. Great questions, Mr. Table Topic Master. So when you introduced the table topic, you talked a little bit about the topic, and I found that really great, but I would appreciate if you could also give the purpose of the table topics in the beginning, because at some point I think we had some guests that will also allow them to understand what the table topics means. In general, the meeting was great, really humorous. I laughed a lot. I think that was the one of the meetings that I really loved since I joined Tigertales. So thank you very much for that wonderful meeting. Let's make sure we do some technical checkings sometimes before the meeting, and that will add some value to our meeting. That is all for my evaluation. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much for that, Cyril. You were so extensive and detailed in your general evaluation that it felt like a speech in its own right. Now to my favorite part of being Toastmaster is announcing the winner. If we could get a drum roll, do drum rolls in your respect. The winner is Chitra. Come and claim your virtual.
Thank you.
And this concludes our Toastmasters meeting for tonight. I'm going to pass it over to our great president, Hassan, who will lead us through the rest.
Thank you, Xavier. You are also a great VPE. Thank you for being at the same time a speaker and the Toastmaster of the day. This is not something easy, but you made it. And I'm really glad to see today Mami, who is from New Jersey or New York, and also GA from Beijing, if I'm not wrong. Really good to have you guys at our meeting. And I have just one announcement. Last week, we renewed the membership for the members of the club. Unfortunately, we didn't reach the goal of having 20 people. We have less than that. But for those who would like to continue the journey, a Toastmaster journey with us, they can also pay their dues in order to be reinstated as Toastmaster. Because when you are not, when you don't renew your membership, you can't have, for instance, your certificate when you complete a project, a level, for instance, or a path. So it's really important to do that. This is it's 8:53, I think. We are a little bit late. This is the end of the meeting. Thank you all, and see you. I hope to see you all next week.